Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week in Shul we'll be reading Parshat Vayishlach, the story of the return of Jacob, our ancestor, our namesake, who will be named Yisrael at the beginning of this portion, and who we are named Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, the children of Jacob. And he's on his way back to Canaan. He's been living in exile for 20-some years, getting married, having children, and now he's coming back and he hears that Esau is coming to meet him, his brother, who he kind of tricked out of his father's blessing at the end of the Parsha before last. And now here he is, and Esau's coming with 400 soldiers, and he's very afraid. Now, God has told him to come back to Israel. So the question is, why is he afraid? Right? If he's a man of faith, if he's got religion, why should he be afraid? And this is a foundational question about religion. Is the whole idea of religion that, if we live according to the way the religion says, we'll have nothing to be afraid of? I don't think so. But I think that's an assumption we often make, that, if you're devout, everything's going to go right for you. Sometimes it comes in the form of the prosperity gospel, right? Do what the Bible says and everything's going to go right. Sometimes it's just more in the back of our heads. We assume that, we feel bitter or betrayed if someone we love gets sick, or if something terrible happens to us, because, why me? I've been religious. I've been devout. The truth is, that doesn't seem to be what the faith of Judaism is about. The idea is not to not be afraid. And so when we read about Jacob, Vayira Yaakov me'od, he was very afraid. Vayetzer lo, is filled with anxiety. And he makes his plan to divide his whole camp, all his people, in half. He's so afraid that he has a plan. I'll put half my people over here and half over here. That way, if this half gets destroyed, I'll still have a legacy. I mean, that's real deep, deep fear. There's a midrash on his fear, and he says there's two people who were frightened. This is Rabbi Pinchas in the name of Rabbi Reuven from Bereshit Rabbah. The Holy Blessed One promised two people that they would be okay, and yet they were afraid. One was Yaakov, Jacob, the chosen of the patriarchs, and the other was Moshe, the chosen of the prophets. It says, why were they afraid? Even if, it begs the question, why were they afraid, even if they had God's assurance? The answer is that God's assurance is not to keep us from being afraid. It's to keep us from being alone. And the faith of Judaism, we talk about God as Pachad Yitzchak, the fear of Yitzchak. That was in last week's Parsha. Here we have Jacob being very afraid. Moshe is described by this midrash, Moses, as being afraid. Why, if you have that close relationship with God, should we still be afraid? Because fear is a fact of human life. And it's okay to be afraid. But it's also important to be courageous. And where do we find that well for courage? Where do we find the strength to go on even though we are afraid? We find it in God. We find it in religion and faith. And one of the most beautiful ways that God is described in our liturgy is Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. We often think of that as we're God's children, we're God's subjects. But I like thinking about what it says about God. If God is our Father, then God knows what it is to be a parent. And among all the wonderful things that there is in being a parent, there is tremendous, tremendous fear. Right? Never are you scared in your life until you become a parent about anything's safety, maybe besides your own. I mean, yes, you maybe have a spouse and we fear for our spouse, but not like we fear for our children, especially when they're babies. We see this helpless little thing in front of us. How am I going to keep this human being safe for his whole life? How am I going to go forward with my life when all I want to do is keep this baby safe. But God has that sense also. If God is a parent, God also knows what it is to fear on behalf of a child. We are the children. And yes, God also knows sometimes love and disappointment and all these kinds of things, or maybe those are the ideals of those things and what we know is just a reflection of it. But there's a companionship there. And if God goes forward and builds this whole world even out of fear for us, how can we not also go forward in that world trying to complete our mission of bringing holiness into the world and tikkun, making this world better for everyone, even though we are afraid? That courage that is God's own also becomes our courage, or it can. And ultimately, that's how Jacob goes forward in our Parsha. When we talk about God as Pachad Yitzchak, as the fear of Yitzchak, it's hard to talk about fearing God. But I like to think of it as placing our fear in God. The Musar rabbis teach this. Rav Israel Salanter taught the idea of Yirat Shamayim, of fear of God, is not that we should be afraid of God, but that we should place our fear in God. Let God hold our fear, since everything is really in God's hands. This is a fearful time. And I know a lot of people are carrying tremendous anxiety about being Jewish, about our loved ones facing anti-Semitic attacks, about our cousins in Israel who are under fire from international diplomats and still living in the precarious state of ceasefire, but not really an end of war. Even one hostage, as of today, at least their body, still in Israel. Something has changed in the last couple of years. It's easy to get caught up in that fear. What I think our faith is trying to give us by allowing us to place our fear in God is to make room for joy and togetherness and courage to continue on our mission of tikkun, to continue on our mission of bringing holiness into the world, despite our very natural and understandable reaction of fear and anxiety to so much of what we see around us. I pray as we read Parshat Vayishlach that we too can face our fear the way that Jacob faces his fear, maybe in fact the wrestling match we read about with the angel that ultimately names him Israel is really a wrestling match with his own fear. But hopefully we too can rise up from that, move forward to face that which we fear, and ultimately by doing so make this world better for us and so many others. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, a beautiful, sacred, and lighthearted, joyful Shabbat.